Hi there, I'm Krystyne Cheever, and welcome to the All Friends Cabaret. It's the show that connects you. Well, we're going to be entertained tonight by students from the South Shore School of Theater, and I'm so excited to welcome the founder of the program and the school itself, Tara Brooke Watkins. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much.
So we're going to talk to you first and then see a great performance afterwards. But tell me, how long have you been well, I won't ask you how long you've been in theater because I'm sure it's a long time. Her mic check sounded so just jazzy and cool. So I know you have a performance background, right?
I do.
But how long has the school been open?
South Shore School of Theater is in our 5th year this year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay. So tell me a bit about your performance background.
My personal performance background. Well, I was one of those kids that, like our kids that you'll see soon.
Yes.
I was 11 years old. My mother thought, what can I do with this dramatic child? And put me in acting classes.
Okay.
I'm originally from Oklahoma, and believe it or not, there were several acting schools there. And so I started acting as a child and started doing shows locally in Tulsa.
Now, did it combine with singing and dancing, or did you just stick to straight drama?
Acting was my thing.
Yeah, okay.
Certainly. But I did musical theater, I took voice lessons, I did some dance.
Okay.
But believe it or not, at 15 years old, I realized I want to teach.
Oh, really?
And I had my first job there.
Now, what made you kind of, because that's very young to want to teach. Usually it's, I want the bright lights.
Right,
and
yeah. Well, I wanted those too, but.
Okay.
That's a good question. I'm not sure I have a perfect answer for you, but what I will say is I saw children performing while I was a student. It was a program called Theater Arts Incorporated. I saw other children performing and I thought, I think they can do more. I just think that there's more I know they were 4 and 5, but I just thought, I think that there's more there.
Right.
So I actually asked the directors of the program if they would let me work with the 4 and 5-year-old musical theater class.
Wow.
And I think that's always been probably the foundation of my belief with kids, especially on stage. I feel like they can do so much more, and if somebody believes in them and they get a chance to be on stage and show that, more people believe in them, they believe in themselves, and that confidence just helps them grow.
And is it about the imagination of it or getting lost in the character? What do you think kids can connect so well with a story, or what do you think it is?
I think as far as acting goes, I think first of all, it's the opportunity to play. I think it's the opportunity to be someone else, to maybe even break the rules that you're not allowed to break in school or at home. You kind of get to do anything up on stage. We encourage our students a lot to take risks, to feel silly. I tell all the students, if you're not willing to feel silly, there's not a lot we can do. So if they can start there, and most kids I think want that opportunity.
Right. So then you taught at your teens. So did you go to college for education
in theater?
Yeah. Oh wow.
I did. My path has been pretty laid out for a while.
That's good.
Yeah, I went to Eastern Nazarene College in Quincy, Massachusetts.
Well, that's fine because I have a theater degree as well, so we have that in common.
Yes. Yep. So I went to E&C for theater. Found my directing passion there.
And when did you come from Oklahoma?
In 1998.
Okay.
And I came here for school.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
So you found this school,
I
and
did.
then what was your curriculum? You plays and the usual.
Yeah, I mean their focus when I was a student, their focus was directing and education.
All right.
And so I just jumped right into that.
All right, and so now tell me how you paved the path to create this great school.
Sure.
This is great.
When I was a student in college, I had a best friend who was focused on music, and she and I actually, as college freshmen, believe it or not, went back to Tulsa and started our own summer musical theater program. So I feel like, that became the foundation for what South Shore School of Theater is today.
All right.
So years ago was when I started doing my own programming, basically.
Okay.
I knew what I wanted as a student, from musical theater programs, from acting programs, and I thought, well, why can't we create that opportunity?
All right, so what is the basic themes in your school? What do the kids have to?
So I am
they have to
really
be silly, right?
They've got to be silly. They've got to take the risks. But I'm really big, first of all, on every child having a moment in the spotlight. I'm really not into the star system.
Yes. Oh, that's nice.
Most of the programs, that I grew up in, it was if you're the star every time.
Right.
I don't know how that lets new students grow if you don't give students an opportunity to play some sort of role where they've got the spotlight on them. Now, not every student is ready for that, but that doesn't mean...
And they may try it once and say, okay,
right,
I'm all
exactly.
set.
And I think as educators, we have, especially theater educators, we have to be aware of not pushing the child who even thinks they might think they're ready. Parents might think they're ready.
Right.
But we have to recognize, this is the role that you're ready for. Let's make sure you can tackle that.
Right.
Get that confidence under you,
That's
and then
great.
we can move on to the next step.
That's great.
So that's the first thing, is making sure we're creating programming and shows that allow a moment for every child who enters our program.
Right.
Then the other part of it is meeting every child where they are and getting them to the next level. So we've got kids in our program who have done theater elsewhere, who have done our program for the 5 years that we've been in existence.
Yes.
And we've got, kids who are like, I've never been on stage, or I've never spoken in front of people.
Right,
So
right.
we try to meet both of those students and get them to the next level. So we choose our shows with that in mind. We choose our programming with that in mind.
Right, and I'm excited to say that I am teaching a film
Yes.
class at the school
Yeah.
actually this weekend. So
Yay.
I'm very excited to kind of bring what
Yes.
my history in film and TV.
Yeah, and that's
to the
actually a new
students.
branch for us, is to
Yes.
start offering workshops, because we have a lot of students who, either they can't enter programming for the entire year or a semester, and they still want to get their feet wet somehow, or they've done everything with us and they want to know other ways they can focus on theater.
And that's great. So you brought it, so you graduated from the school, and did you say, hey, I've got this idea, or what was the
Yeah, well, so the
Oklahoma?
10 years between those two times. So I graduated in 2002. I worked at Plymouth Plantation for a while as a
okay.
pilgrim, which was a lot of fun. So I got to work on education and acting at
But
the
isn't
same
it
time.
fun the different acting jobs you have as an actor?
Well, and I may have been the only one there who believed it was an acting job, but I loved
Good for
it.
you.
I had a
Good
blast.
for
I was
you.
like, this is my character, and I will put everything into it.
Yeah.
And I actually got a job as an instructor and musical theater director at Riverside Theater Works in Hyde Park shortly after that, and I ran their theater side of things for 5 years. So I was their artistic director for 5 years. The executive director and I developed that program into a family theater program. And after a while, I started feeling like, I love the teaching, I love the directing, not sure I love the competitive theater side.
Right, right.
At around the same time that I'm realizing that, E&C calls me and says, we're losing our artistic director for the season. We know you have experience. Could you complete
Right.
the year here?
Oh, nice.
So I was like, actually, I was thinking of, making more of a move into education and directing anyway, and I'd
Right.
love to work with college students. So I went to E&C in 2010, had people there go, hey, we've got kids.
Yes.
Could you create a children's school?
Yeah.
And you can use our space. So that's kind of how that, a kismet moment all
Right,
happened.
right.
Yeah.
And it's we first met when I
Yes.
covered the 40 Under 40
Right.
awards, and that was a couple years ago that you were
Yeah,
awarded with
right.
that honor because of your work
Right.
at the theater. And
Yeah.
so that must have been a thrill. But I remember one of the things you said when I had asked you a question about starting something.
Yeah.
And you said, don't worry about having
all your
your
ducks in a row.
Just
Yeah,
do it,
just
and
do
the
it.
ducks will follow. And I thought, what a great, that was a great term.
Yeah,
The thing is to just take that step.
Just do it.
To just
Yeah, I
do
think
it.
a lot of,
Things fall into place.
well, and when I say that tiny musical theater program I started back in Tulsa as a freshman in college, I think that's what, as we get older, we lack that courage. As a college student, that's what I did. I was like, I'm going to go home for the summer and start a summer program,
Yes,
and our
yes.
first year was great. Our second year grew, and you don't realize when you look back, what did I have then that I don't have now? Oh, I just had courage.
yeah.
I just chose to do it.
Right, right.
And knew what I was doing, but certainly I didn't have everything lined up, ready to go. I didn't
Right,
have
and-
workshops planned from the beginning. You follow, I think, the growth.
Oh no, that's good. That's
Yeah.
good, because I always encourage every guest to talk about how would you encourage someone to kind of take that bold
Yeah.
step. So,
Yeah. Well, and I think it's very easy to say, just don't be afraid.
well, you're right.
That's easy, right? And I think it certainly wouldn't be honest if I said it didn't scare me every bit of the way. I mean, the first year, I remember going, certainly coming from Eastern Nazarene College too, having that Christian background, I was praying every moment, God, have some students sign up for the program.
Right.
And I think it's also good to learn that you can fail and still survive.
Right.
So I think the fear of failure keeps a lot of us from starting our own business or
Right.
starting anything, doing anything. But if you can actually start it and realize you can fail and survive at
Right.
the same time.
Well, I think that people even start at fail. They'll say, "Oh no, they're not gonna.
Right.
That's not gonna
You've
work."
already failed before you started.
Right. So I do agree with you to just go and do it. It sounds like you have like a lot of experience to kind of that has led the way.
Yeah,
for
I mean,
you.
in a way, like I said, I do feel like my path has kind of always been leading here, and I love it. I mean, I love working with kids on stage.
Right. And what have they taught you? I always like to ask teachers that. What have your kids and students taught, and what has surprised you about them?
I am constantly surprised, I'll say that. I think one of the things that theater in general, and I think especially with kids, should teach anybody is you're never going to know the outcome. So you have to trust what's in front of you.
Right.
There's a lot of theater professionals who will believe in pre-casting. So you choose a show knowing you've already got the students or actors who can fulfill parts.
Right.
I think that takes away the element of surprise in an audition. You have to be open to the kid or the actor who's going to come in, because they've finally got to the point of taking their risk,
right,
auditioning for you. And if you've already decided who's going to play a role,
right,
you've stopped somebody else's path as well as stopped something for yourself.
Right, so you kind of keep it an open.
Always remain open. I mean, I think every single time I have gotten close to pre-casting, I have, I shouldn't say hated myself, that's very dramatic of me.
But we're talking theater, so you can be.
I've relearned the same lesson.
Yes.
You know, every time that I get close to that, I go, oh my gosh,
no,
once again, there's that child that surprised me. And I think what's nice is if you have the philosophy of providing an educational opportunity for a student, and I say educational opportunity instead of performance opportunity. Every child has something they are really great at, they're unique at, and nobody else can do better.
Right.
But as an educational program, I want to stretch them to something they don't think they can do as well, something that is in them that I hope I can see and tap into.
Right. And then they can learn
and then they go,
themselves.
I had no idea I could do that, but I had to because it's a theater format and we know the show is going to go up.
Right.
So I have got to work to get there, and that moment of surprise for them as well is why I do what I do.
Oh, that's great. That's
and
great.
I think what's also great, sorry.
No, go right
This
ahead.
is my passion. So I think what's also great is seeing parents be shocked and awed by their kids.
That's nice.
You know, because then you're also aiding in, I think, a good familial environment.
Right. Oh, that's great. Well, it's funny. I did summer stock in Vermont years ago, and I'll never forget. I was Mrs. Medlock, and there's this big scene in The Secret Garden where she has a monologue, and I'm sitting next to the 12-year-old girl that's moving into the big house. Well, all of a sudden, boom, lines go out of my head, and I'm like this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to stop the show. And the little girl goes, didn't you mean your mother's sister? Like, that's your line. And I was like, what?
Thank you. Yes.
I had 10, 20 ghosts singing behind me who were all adults, and they couldn't stop. But and I thought, wow, what a big shoes that she filled to kind of save me. So it's amazing that these kids can take on a lot.
Right, and I, you know, even that story is, I think, indicative to what is so special about theater, in that it creates a camaraderie if it's done well and done right. And I think if you don't play into the star system idea and you play into ensemble.
I love that. I wish that was around when I was a kid, because there was always a girl that was going to play Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz.
Right, you kind of know who's going to get the part when you go in.
And then you're waiting for the list outside the door